So, my dear friends, my name is Dr. Jatin Kumar Raychaudhuri, and today's topic of discussion is endometriosis. I am highly indebted to the textbook of Berek and Novak's Gynecology, Williams Gynecology, Clinical Gynecologic Endocrinology and Infertility, ACOG and RCOG journals. Diagnosis: endometriosis should be suspected in women with secondary dysmenorrhea, dyspareunia, especially deep dyspareunia, chronic pelvic pain, and infertility. Other features are painful defecation with rectovaginal septum involvement and premenstrual spotting, out of which dysmenorrhea, dyspareunia, chronic pelvic pain, and infertility are the most common features. Endometriosis may be asymptomatic even in a case of advanced disease like ovarian endometrioma or deep endometriosis. It may be associated with several gastrointestinal symptoms in the form of nausea, vomiting, bloating, distension, and altered bowel habits. The average delay between the onset of pain symptoms and surgically confirmed endometriosis is often long, between 8 to 12 years. Patient's quality of life is also very much affected by pain, infertility, dyspareunia, and anger about the disease recurrence, recurrent surgery, uncertainty about the future course, and about the long-term treatment of the disease. Dysmenorrhea may be suggestive of endometriosis when it appears after years of painless period. Dysmenorrhea often starts before the onset of period and continues throughout the menstrual period. It is less responsive to NSAIDs and OC pills. Dysmenorrhea may be less frequent and less severe when the woman is suffering from only ovarian endometrioma. The distribution of pain is often bilateral. Symptoms may arise from rectal and other pelvic viscera. Chronic pelvic pain radiating to rectum and lower back may be present. Deep lesions are associated with pelvic pain, deep dyspareunia, painful defecation, and other GI symptoms. The severity of pain may not correspond to the degree of endometriosis. The possible mechanism of pain includes local peritoneal inflammation, deep infiltration with tissue damage, adhesion formation, fibrotic thickening and distortion, and collection, swelling, tension of the endometriotic implants during period. Extrapelvic endometriosis also may present with pain and mass outside the pelvis related in a cyclic pattern. Infertility: when endometriosis is moderate or severe, involving the ovaries and tubes and causing adhesion, distortion, and blockage, the ovum pickup and tubal motility are hampered, leading to infertility. Even in minimal or mild endometriosis, fertility is hampered by the following mechanisms: ovulatory dysfunction, luteal insufficiency, luteinized unruptured follicle, intraperitoneal inflammation, altered immunity, and spontaneous abortion. Though endometriosis is considered to be a cause of spontaneous abortion, recent studies do not associate endometriosis with recurrent pregnancy loss. Neither it is a fact that medical or surgical treatment of endometriosis reduces spontaneous abortion. Endocrinological abnormalities. Endometriosis is associated with multiple endocrinological abnormalities, including anovulation, abnormal follicular development, reduced circulating E2 level, disturbed LH surge, premenstrual spotting, luteal insufficiency, luteinized unruptured follicle syndrome, out of phase endometrial biopsy, galactorrhea, and hyperprolactinemia. Clinical examination. In minimal, mild, and sometimes moderate cases, there may not be any positive findings on clinical examination. Cul-de-sac nodularity or uterosacral nodularity may be found, and which is often tender. Uterosacral scarring may be present with cervical displacement. Painful swelling of the rectovaginal septum may be found and it is supported by rectal examination. Tender adnexal fullness or fixed mass will be found in ovarian endometrioma. In more advanced cases, fixed retroverted uterus with reduced mobility of appendages, that means frozen pelvis, will be seen. Uterosacral nodularity is associated with deep endometriosis of the rectovaginal septum, and sometimes there may be black blue colored lesion in the vaginal vault seen on speculum examination. Imaging. Like symptoms and clinical examination, imaging may also be deceptive for diagnosis. Ultrasonography. Transvaginal sonography is recommended for imaging for diagnosis of endometriosis. However, the sensitivity and specificity for diagnosis is dependent on the type and degree of the disease, interest and experience of the sonographer, and quality of the machine. Transvaginal sonography has no value in the diagnosis of peritoneal endometriosis. Transvaginal sonography reliably diagnoses endometrioma by ground glass echogenicity of the cyst fluid, which is an homogeneous low-level internal echoes, 1 to 4 locules and no solid parts. Transvaginal sonography can diagnose deep endometriosis involving the rectovagina and the bladder with moderate reliability. Deep endometriosis, if suspected by clinical or imaging, ureteral, bladder and bowel involvement should be assessed. CT and MRI, they are costly and their added value is unclear, so not considered as the first line. CT with high radiation may be avoided in young reproductive women. MRI has a good sensitivity and specificity for endometrioma and deep endometriosis, but the value in addition to ultrasonography is limited. MRI may help to pick up small lesions and distant extrapelvic lesions. CA-125. There is no specific blood test for the diagnosis of endometriosis. Levels of CA-125, which is a glycoprotein secreted by the coelomic epithelium, and it is common to most non-mucinous epithelial ovarian carcinomas, are significantly higher in women with moderate or severe endometriosis. Level is however within normal limit in minimal or mild disease. Now, endometriosis initiates peritoneal irritation and inflammation leading to the release of CA-125. Level may rise during the period. Non-menstrual level is 8 to 22 units per ml in normal cases, 14 to 31 in mild endometriosis, and 13 to 95 in severe endometriosis. However, it is non-specific and not recommended by ESHRE. Laparoscopy. Laparoscopy is the gold standard for the diagnosis of endometriosis. However, laparoscopic recognition vary with the experience of the surgeon. Histologic confirmation is essential. Systemic and complete examination of the pelvis and abdomen should be done by inspection and palpation with a blunt probe to check for nodularity. The type, location, extent of the disease and adhesion should be documented. In addition, photos and videos to be obtained. Peritoneal endometriosis. Characteristic findings include typical powder burn lesions which are black, dark brown or bluish nodule or small cyst containing old hemorrhage surrounded by variable degree of fibrosis. Subtle lesions may be seen including red implants, serous or clear vesicles, white plaques, yellow-brown discoloration of the peritoneum, subovarian adhesion and defect or holes in the peritoneum. Deep endometriosis. At laparoscopy, they may appear like minimal disease. However, palpation under the lesion discover them, or they may be discovered as a palpable mass beneath the visually normal peritoneum. Ovarian endometriosis. Diagnosis is facilitated by careful inspection of all sides of both ovaries. Superficial ovarian lesions may be subtle. However, larger cysts, which are called endometriomas, are usually located on the anterior surface of the ovary. They contain starry, thick chocolate fluid, and the cyst diameter less than 12 cm, and adhesion to the pelvic side wall present, which differentiates them from hemorrhagic corpus luteum or neoplastic cyst. Positive histology confirms the diagnosis of endometriosis. However, negative histology does not exclude it. Visual inspection is usually adequate, but still histology confirmation of at least one lesion is ideal. Ovarian endometrioma more than 4 cm and in deep endometriosis, histology is recommended at least to exclude any malignancy. Microscopically, endometriotic implants consist of endometrial glands and or stroma with or without hemosiderin-laden macrophages. And the color of these endometriotic implants depend on the relative proportion of these endometrial gland, stroma and these hemosiderin-laden macrophages. Microscopic endometriosis is a newer term and it is defined as the presence of endometrial glands and stroma in macroscopically normal pelvic peritoneum, and it may be found in 10 to 15% of normal peritoneum. American Society for Reproductive Medicine revised classification of endometriosis. Now, it is the most widely used classification which depends on visualization of the endometriotic lesions on laparoscopy or laparotomy. Endometriosis on peritoneum, ovaries, fallopian tube and cul-de-sac is scored, and the points are assigned on the basis of surface area, degree of invasion, morphology and associated adhesions. The disease is classified as minimal, mild, moderate and severe, and it is a simple, widespread and used for comparative study. However, it is poorly correlated with pain and infertility. The Endometriosis Fertility Index or EFI classification shows the prediction of pregnancy rates following surgical staging and treatment of endometriosis. And women with deep endometriosis should additionally complete the NGN classification. So this is the revised ASRM classification, where endometriosis is noted on peritoneum and both the two ovaries, posterior cul-de-sac obliteration noted and adhesions noted on both the two ovaries and fallopian tubes. And the scores are given, and the disease is classified as minimal with 1 to 5 score, mild with 6 to 15 score, moderate with 16 to 40 score and severe with more than 40 scores. Thank you for your patient watching. If you like the video, please subscribe. Namaste.